Welcome to If I Die Today. It's a podcast hosted by me, Samay Mishra. Before we begin, I want to make something really clear. This podcast is entirely independent of my professional work and my company. The views and opinions shared here by myself or by any guest are personal reflections meant to inspire, inform, and provide perspective. Nothing discussed should be taken as professional, financial, or medical advice, nor as a representative of any institution or organization that we're affiliated with. This is a space for honest conversation about life, purpose, and what truly matters, all shared in a personal capacity. Really thank you for tuning in to If I Died Today. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to If I Died Today. Today, I have a very, very special guest. So, introducing Sunny Tripathy. Sunny is family to me. I call him Sunny Bai out of respect, but he's an older brother, a dear friend. He was also one of the early believers and advocates for launching If I Died Today. Sunny Bai, also known as Sunny T, is an award-winning screenwriter, entrepreneur, director, filmmaker, and producer. He's written for studios including 20th Century Fox, Sony Television, Amazon, TriStar, Sony Pictures Animation, Disney, Netflix, and DreamWorks, and so many more, and is also the co-founder of Mama's, a CPG food company known for its super ghee. So, Sunny, welcome to the podcast. I skipped ahead of you and gave you a little bit of intro because, you deserve it. So welcome.
Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself as well.
I don't know how to live up to that introduction. That was fantastic. Very happy to be here. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm excited for the podcast, and thank you for having me on.
Awesome. So
and
I think
Coco
you guys have
on. She's
we
the
got Coco in the frame.
unsolicited guest for today.
Yeah, she's the CCO of Mama's, Chief Canine Officer.
You'd have to talk to her agents
into it.
If you want to book her on the podcast. She's very busy.
Oh man, I actually might need to blur her out to make sure I don't get a
lawsuit. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think the guests from that introduction got a good kind of idea of who you are professionally, but would love to dive in a little bit more onto your early childhood. I love to get guests' kind of earliest memories and what characterized childhood for them, and then kind of grow along the story there. So what was early childhood like for you, and what were some of your earliest memories that categorized that period of life for you?
What a loaded question to start with. What was your childhood like? Do people just start crying on the podcast? No, luckily, I'm very lucky. I had a very wonderful childhood. I think my earliest memories is both you and I belong to the Oriya community, which is a region in India from a state from Orissa, where it's like a smaller state, and there were less people who made it out to the US or Canada. And so the communities found each other, they got really close, and they stayed connected. And for me, my memory is growing up with 1,000 families. My childhood is marked by strong, deep relationships with tons of different people, many of whom I wasn't related to by blood. And there's the expression of it takes a village to raise a kid. And that's how I was raised. And I feel very fortunate because I got the benefit of having so many teachers, so many influences, and a ton of different love from everybody. And I think that was one of the most formative things for me, never feeling lonely. I aspired to figure out how to do that for my future family, but it was really remarkable.
Awesome. I think that gives a little bit of context also, upbringing, community, family. What were kind of your earliest memories and relationship with stories, imagination, or creativity? I know that that's something that characterized, a lot of your teenage years, especially middle school, but even old family recordings of you with your sister, who's also obviously a close family of ours. Tell me a little bit about that. What was the early kind of spark towards creativity for you?
I've always been fascinated with people's lives and the human experience and stories. And I feel like that's how I understand people and understand worlds and communities and situations that I've not yet experienced. And so I think even some of my early memories, of course there was doing theater in our community and doing plays and dance and music. But I always thought quickly on my feet. When I was 6 years old, I was in Canada, and I remember, or maybe even 5, and my grandparents were visiting, and my grandma was babysitting me. She was asleep, and my parents and all the friends and family went for a walk. And there was this neighbor across the street, and they had a little daughter who was my age. Her name was Megan. It was like probably 5 year old crush, but I wanted to talk to her. So no one was home. My grandma's sleeping. I like sat in the kitchen window because the house is we're facing each other. And I like sat with my hands on the screen to try to talk, and we were chit chatting. I pushed too hard and I pushed the screen door down and I broke it. And I've obviously freaked out and I didn't want to get into trouble. So when my family came home, they found the whole house in ruins and like things were knocked over and they were like, what happened? Like, and I didn't want to admit like what had happened. So I told them that there was a criminal who broke into the house. And this is just like a 5 year old. Like my grandma comes down like hair amok, like she has no idea what happened. They're like, what happened? The window's broken. And I just stood there confidently and I was like, a criminal broke in. And I, worked really hard to fight off the criminal. There was a mess around the house, but don't worry. It's all okay now. And I'm so glad you came home. And they were like baffled. They're like calling the police, like trying to figure out what happened. And they like called the cops and we're trying to figure it out. And then eventually they were like, wait, what did he steal? And I said, he stole your dish soap. And they were like, he stole the dish soap. And so that's when they're on the phone with the cops and they're like, we'll call you back. And then they're like, okay, something doesn't add up. And then they like walked over to the neighbor's house and they're like, do you know what happened to our window? And like, if was there a break in? And they're like, oh yeah, Sonny was trying to talk to our daughter and he broke the window and he was just sitting there and then he like left and they were like, oh my God. And I don't know, I just always like I've thought of these stories even as a young kid and, luckily I probably stopped fictionalizing stories, but
Yeah.
I did enjoy the human experience. And honestly, I get bored when people tell very boring stories. Like life is so interesting. Like tell me about your life or your dreams in a good way that captivates my attention. And if you tell a story well, like your trip to Target or the gas station can have me laughing. It can keep me captivated. It could have me enthralled. And it just like makes your life a movie in a really beautiful way. But then sometimes you talk to people and you're like, how's it going? And they're like, good. And you're like, "Oh, what would you do today?" And they're like, oh, I ran some errands. And it's like, tell me give me something with an arc and a story and some emotion. And so I love people who do that. Your brother does that. And that's also something that really helped us bond as friends. But like life is exciting. And so you can tell stories in a way that's captivating. And I think I've always been intrigued by that and excited by that. And I find storytellers magnetic.
No, that's so true. I think even across all human interactions, whether that's like business or a movie or a really good book, it's like that shared ability of storytelling is so captivating because that was just how we communicated early on. That's how humans passed on information and songs and writing like time and time again before we were able to actually write. So that makes sense, like, even early on that, you found that so fascinating, but even in our conversations, like, it's even like a regular, trip to the grocery store, Krispy Kreme was always surrounded by captivating stories and just to make people laugh or just to add some sort of, I don't know, action to it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Like your brother will tell me a story about a sandwich he ate at a gas station. Like it's the best sandwich and the first sandwich ever made for man. And it like transformed his life. And it's ridiculous. But it's also why I love him so much. Like that's so exciting to me. And you could take somebody else and take him to a Michelin star restaurant with a world class chef and they'd say, oh, the food is great. And I just like meant internally collapse. I'm like, that's all you
Mhm.
can tell me to make me feel, you know?
Yeah. Was there any early influences for you, or early mentors, whether that was your parents or people that you saw on popular television that were of significant influence in your life?
My parents were actually both really good at theater. It's super ironic because later in life, they're like, no acting, no writing, no directing, no drama. And I was like, you do this like every weekend, like, and you're really good. Like they're really talented. And so I was always captivated seeing them perform, even when I was a kid. My parents were in a play called Chamana Tangata, which is an Odia play in Toronto with like, and it was, I don't know, maybe 40 years ago, and it was, like, profound for its time, and it had spectacle, and the performances were incredible. Like, I wanna re-find the footage and watch it again because, like, I wouldn't even believe that those are my parents. It's so good, and, they definitely had an influence on me, and outside of that, I think, weirdly, Harry Potter. Like, I felt like my middle school years were my years of being a little over let's not say a little overweight and being very nerdy and being bullied. And so I always felt like the outsider. And there's something so interesting about like Harry Potter kind of coming around that time, both in book form and in movie form, where I felt seen and heard. And I felt like somebody like me could be the main character of a story. And that no matter the hardships or the obstacles, that you can find success and you can overcome the demons and all of that sort of stuff. So it was a huge influence on me and also about, things like friendship. Like I learned a lot of my
Mhm.
values from that franchise, both book and movies. So those have been my early influences. Of course, I had, super mentors later in life, but
Mhm.
just as a kid, it was like my parents, my community, and there was a older sister like a figure named Rena in Canada who did Kathak. And so she got me interested in the world of dance and color and visuals and spectacles, music. I also played the tabla. So there was just a lot of people in the community who had the arts within them that I learned from. I'd say my parents and then Harry Potter. Those are my
Yeah.
early big influences. And also Lord of the Rings to an extent because I would
Mhm.
camp out to see those movies and the grandeur that was capable that like film was capable of even the first one came out 24 years ago was so breathtaking to me that I felt like I want to be part of an industry that can create that kind of emotional response through fictional storytelling.
No, that's so beautiful. When did that start translating into, like, you yourself wanting to do things? Were you picking up a camera or you doing stand-up comedy was a part of your life? Or you dancing? Or when did those things become something like, "Alright, I wanna try these things?" Was there, like, a early, like, "I'm gonna do this first," or was there a turning point, a spark that you're like, "Alright, let me just start doing things?"
Yeah. I love the feeling of making someone laugh. And so even as a kid, maybe when I was like 13ish, in basements in Canada, I would be like telling people jokes and, doing little stand-up bits. And it would be like four people and five people and auntie uncles. And I think there was one Oria convention, which is a big event that the Oria community hosts once a year, where they sort of dragged me on stage and I was like maybe 16 years old and they were like, do what you did at our house for everybody. And there was like 500 people there and I was just a kid with a microphone and I redid the routine and it was like uproarious laughter. And it's a feeling you can't really describe because it is such a high to be able to like make people laugh and then you have their attention and it is like intoxicating and crazy, but there's also a lot of pressure because you can't screw it up. And so that's how I kind of dabbled in stand up. It led to me trying out various competitions. There was a thing called Last Teen Comic Standing. I did the first season of that when I was 17. I ended up winning. It was a really fun little thing. I did like a micro tour. I don't really do stand up anymore, but I used that to translate into writing. And then camera wise, my dad had bought a camcorder for me to film my sister when she was born. And of course, it's like in the beginning, I'm like, baby, how cute. And then I was like, this is cool, like filmmaking, storytelling. And then soon it was like me filming movies with my friends and like trying to do little act outs. And as soon as my sister was older, instead of like documenting her natural life, I was like, put on this outfit, do this thing, say these dialogues. Now come running here. I'm going to play music. And I just started making these really amateur videos and they were pretty terrible, but you could just tell there was a seed of creativity that was kind of growing and a passion there and that was fun. And, it would be like those weekends where I would spend all like a month editing these movies with like a red, white, yellow cable on a VHS tape
Mhm.
and like, doing old school, like there's no computers. And I would like edit these little videos. And then whenever there's like a family party, there'd be like a potluck party and my parents have their friends over. I'd be like, okay, I'd like walk in. I'm like 13 years old. I'm like, okay, I have my movie. Like we have to watch a movie. And everybody's like, okay, what are we going to watch right now? Like, don't bother us. And then I would convince everybody to come and they would like sit around our old, like, I don't know, 24-inch TV. And it would be like a 5, 6 minute movie, like starring my sister and some cousins and some friends. And it was wonky. But I would see that like they would laugh or they would feel something. That's sort of how I think it all really started.
Wow, that's awesome. So it sounds like you had a lot of different types of experience creating at that early onset, and you knew that it was something that you enjoyed. When did it become a transition of like, this is what I want to do for life?
Has it still? No. um, I think it was college. Like I went to UCLA and I started in the engineering program. Like I probably confused my parents because I was good at math and science. Like I got into every engineering school. I was academically strong. I started in CS. I was terrible at CS, but I just didn't have an interest for it. While there, I was still pursuing like making these little videos with my friends. We shot a small web series like with $500. It was called Keeping Up with the Guptas. It was with my parents, and ended up like bringing in some friends from the community. Your mom had a cameo in it. At one point, Meta World Peace and some of the Lakers had cameos in it. Like it became a really viral sensation, and it was interesting where like with $500, no followers, no fans, no help, if we were able to like end up on the cover of Times of India and have like hundreds of thousands of people around the world talking about this little show, which was just, my family doing goofy things with no money, then like maybe there is something here worth pursuing professionally. And that was sort of I think the realization that it's like worth pursuing. And I try a lot of things and I'm not afraid to fail, but I'm much more afraid to like have not tried and said,
Mm.
I'm going to have this regret. And what if I could have? And what if I could have done this and that? And so I think probably like after the success of Keeping Up with the Guptas, I decided to really commit. And I knew that it would be years of hardship. I maybe didn't know it would be a decade of hardship or more, or
Mhm.
like a life of hardship as an artist. But I found such a joy doing it that I was like, I'd do this for free. Don't tell the studios
Yeah.
because I will not. But it's like the joy of it was so fun to me that it didn't feel like work, and I decided to make it my career.
Yeah, and this is also in an era of, like, pre-social media, right? Not to date you, but
Yeah,
this is, like,
correct. So,
that
no
type of
social
traction
media.
at that time was, like, pretty unprecedented,
It
or at
was
least
like
the
15
reach.
years ago or like
Yeah.
14 years ago, and like YouTube was still early, like
Mhm.
there were people just starting to experiment, and my YouTube account had like 8 subscribers. 8. So, to go from 8 subscribers truly organically 10, 15 years ago with no influencers, social media, no Instagram, nothing. It was really special. Like we would land in Singapore and people would like stop us to take photos. We could be in, random part of India, Canada. And so that was like incredibly exciting, but also like revealing that like you can, if the story's good and the heart is there, you don't need a lot of resources to connect with people.
Okay, awesome. So I know that you've worn many hats throughout your profession. Screenwriting is your bread and butter, but you've spread across film, directing, the business side of things. What's kind of the common thread connecting all of that? Like, when were you able to identify Sunny T as a brand or a creative presence that stretched across all those different professions?
I think the thread in common is the ability to capture cerebral attention. So if it's writing, directing, putting together a story, putting together a film, putting together a show, putting together a series, building out IP, capturing attention. Like the reason I have had a good amount of success, especially on the writing side, is that usually from page one, my scripts are hooked. And that is a tricky thing to land, and I don't always land it. And, but I think I've gotten better if I would say that there's something that I'm relatively decent at, no matter the subject. Like it might be a story that you don't care about or subject, but typically I can hook attention. And then in terms of like the directing or being involved in producing and stuff, I think oftentimes it's just about a little bit of leadership, but also problem solving. So like figuring out how to piece things together, building relationships with talent, actors, studios and financiers and things like that. So it's a little bit of relationship management, problem solving, and tenacity to not give up.
Something I've noticed in your creative process or just your work process in general and in your workflow is the environment that you curate so that you can be creative and get things done in an environment that's conducive to creation. How important is that? Or was there a certain clicking point that it became more important for you when you were going about the process of conducing a proper environment for it and curating something that can spark inspiration and also sharpen focus when you're writing or making things?
Yeah, great question. I'm definitely like, it's funny because I probably present as somebody who's very carefree and relaxed, but I typically am a very anxious person inside and I have a lot of anxiety and I'm an overthinker. It's very difficult for like typically writers and storytellers happen to be more emotional, more sensitive, more empathetic. And so it is very hard to block out the news of the world and what's happening around the planet and all of that. And so to mitigate my anxiety, like I have to curate safe spaces to work and to be creative. And my home office has a lot of plants and trees and greenery and art and mood lighting and soundscapes and certain humidity. Like it's to a ridiculous extent, but there's like humidity controls, there's lighting controls, there's scents that you will feel in different rooms. So, and it also helps me feel creative because like I think that like your home can also be a home or a place of stories. And it's an experience. So, like, you want to feel like you're in a environment that excites you about experience and feeling. And it's like very hard for me to work outside of like very zen, calm environments. I can work in like clean, quiet spaces. I listen to a lot of soundtracks, but usually I'm very biophilic. So if it's something that's like nature related, I tend to do better.
Was there ever a moment where it was like an intense writer's block, like it took a long time for you to get out of a slump?
Weirdly, I've been a writer for 15 years, 8 or so years successfully. And I don't think I have writer's block because I have ADD, ADHD, AD Blu-ray. Like I have the best version of ADD. And 4K, 8K, I have it all. And because of that, I get bored so easily that I have a million projects. So when I get stuck on this one, I have 10 more that I'm excited about. So I will go and play over here. Oftentimes, in that play, I will solve the problem for this, come back with fresh eyes, jump in, finish it, hop again. So I don't like, it's like weird because like in storytelling or writing or screenplays, you have to be emotionally attached enough to do well. And then you have to be a business professional to detach. Cause sometimes like I've sold screenplays that, were everybody loved them. They sold for a great amount of, and a great deal and then they die because the studio changes or whatever. So you can't like get held up on like this one project or two projects. Just got to keep moving, keep telling stories and hope that the best ones will make it or sometimes the best ones don't, but hope that some will.
Mhm.
And if you're a storyteller, you just let the stories keep flowing through you and not worry about being stuck.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, like, it is a level of attachment that you have to have towards the work and obviously passion to do it, but also a level of detachment to the sense that, like, this is if you can't let this one opportunity hold up all the other projects and things that could be an opportunity just because it doesn't pan out how you want it. So that's like an interesting balance that I think you have to strike when creating things. And also, I think creating things is one thing, but presenting them to public or presenting them to people who critique it and have to judge it and, I won't say bring it value, but assign it value to a certain extent so that it can have not only an effect on whatever network or whatever platform that they're trying to produce it on and create some sort of return on investment, but also like, will people enjoy this is also a part of the creation process. It's not just like something that you can enjoy inherently, but that's just, I guess, but byproduct of working in a space that's creative and art based. I want to shift gears a little bit. You have also been on entrepreneurial ventures encompass some of the projects that you've been working on outside of just creative work. Tell me a little bit about those. What kind of sparked the start of your entrepreneurial journey? Was there any inspiration there? And then I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about what you're doing at Mama's.
I have been very fascinated with business and innovative businesses my whole life. Like I've had ideas for businesses and not necessarily the resources to execute them. I'm fascinated by entrepreneurs because, in the same way that film requires a certain endurance of like surviving through failure and continuing to fight through insane odds, like I feel like artists, entrepreneurs, like it's a rare breed of people who it's a blessing and a curse, and they choose a life of chasing something that they love and they get to follow their passions, and there's a lot of glory to it, but it's also extremely unstable, painful, treacherous, and hard. I've always related with entrepreneurs just like artists, and I've always wanted to build a big business in some way or form. I've explored different ways and ideas to do that. Like many of my heroes include people like Ratan Tata, who he was many times over the wealthiest person on the planet, more than Musk or Bezos. And he, through his charitable work, has constantly knocked himself off those wealthy lists by like not only giving back, but building companies that take care of their employees, take care of the people, do good, leave a legacy, do tons of philanthropy. So there's people I like have always admired because I thought if you have a certain skill set and you have certain abilities and certain talents and you can get things done and you can create and generate an enormous amount of capital and then use that capital to do good and leave a legacy so that after you die, you've actually not only made the world a better place, but you've made the world a better place times 1 million X. And if it's within your bandwidth, why not? So I find people like that very inspirational. And so I've always been a big dreamer. I am a big dreamer. I'm crazy ambitious. And with Mamas, it was my wife, Sonia. She was a model. She is a model. She's always been very interested in health and wellness. And after starting to lose family members to preventable disease, and even during COVID, I was super sick before the vaccine. I kept getting hospitalized. I think there's a lot of nerves of like, oh my gosh, like what if I die? Like life is so short. And we also realize that like most of us, especially in America, are so unwell. Like we're in a chronic state of inflammation and often triggered from the foods we're eating. The food industry is so corrupt with manipulation, marketing, like or mismarketing, misinformation, disinformation. And we're all, I mean, I believe like the US is one of the few first world countries that's actually starting to see a decrease in lifespan and health span, which is crazy. So it was something that we were fascinated by. And during COVID, Sonia's mom was like, eat more ghee, eat more ghee. And like we grew up with ghee and we love ghee, but we didn't understand the extent of its health benefits. Like it's obviously very anti-inflammatory. It's high in butyrates. It's good for GI health. It's got vitamins. It's good for your digestive system. But it's good in an almost cellular level, higher smoke point, less carcinogenic, which means that when you're cooking food, there's less acrylamides. And again, there's a lot of confusion about oils. Like people will sometimes use olive oil thinking it's healthier, which it is, but then they will like fry with it, which makes it has a low smoke point and actually becomes very toxic. So there's a lot of misinformation about it. And ghee is actually one of the best fats. We think it's the best fat that you can eat in the world, period. It's not something we invented. It's been around for thousands of years in like Ayurvedic, ancient Vedic medicine. And in the US, so basically we started eating ghee and I started to see my biomarkers improve. Like my health got better. I got more energetic. It was the irony of like, I'm eating more fat and yet I'm leaning out and I'm getting healthier. And so we were fascinated by it because there's so much misinformation about people used to think eat ghee and you'll get fat. It's like
Mhm.
eat butter, you'll get fat. It's actually sugar and insulin problems that create weight gain. We started making our own ghee at home and like we started trying to like mitigate the odors using certain flours and herbs, and we formulated a ghee that we thought really tasted well and tasted good and was really fun to use and very versatile. We started giving it away for free just for our friends. It was like our little secret recipe. And it's expensive to keep giving away for free. And our friends were like, you should sell this stuff. And we're like, you're just like LA friends blowing smoke up our ass. Like, it's not going to work. And we like thought about it and we discovered that like, ghee is an Indian Ayurvedic superfood. And in the United States, the top three ghee brands in retail come from white men who have appropriated the Indian branding to really look like it's an authentic product that is actually not even oftentimes having the right dairy. It's completely mismarketed. It just didn't feel right. And we felt
Mm,
like it was time for an actual Indian founded ghee to be on the market. And we felt that ours was doing well. So we like literally took our savings, no investors. We got a commercial space and we got all our licenses and we started, packaging our own key. Sonia really wanted to be a like founder who knew what she was talking about because there's so many, fake experts these days,
right.
especially on social media. So she actually went back to school. She got her MBA, but then she also got into a really cool program at UPenn. There's like 15 people in that program. It's sponsored by the NIH, and it was a nutrition science master's where they study gerontology, epidemiology, and how to reverse disease through food, which is
Mm,
incredible. So she really wanted to understand that to a really deep level, and I admire that about her. And she recently graduated. So anyway, long story short, we started like making this stuff. We started formulating it for optimization for health. We started selling at farmers markets. It was a disaster at first. Like we would be up at 4 a.m. We'd spend hundreds of dollars to be at the farmers market. And then by the end of the day, we'd make $30. And
mm,
it was a total embarrassment and it was, crushing. But it was like the two, three customers that kept coming back. We're like, I'm obsessed. Like, I love your key. I told my friends, blah, blah, blah. And we kept going, and these customers kept engaging. Soon it was like we had lines, and then we were selling out, and then we were like the most popular booth at the farmers market. Then, like one day, the cast of White Lotus picked up our ghee, and they were like obsessed. A few weeks later, we wake up in the morning, and Jessica Alba has like given us a shout out on Instagram and given Sonia a shout out, and it was like unbelievable. Like it started to really take off. We got together a few crates because we had a few fans for the product. We put it on Amazon, no ads, no funding, no nothing. Like we were on like page 10 of search results.
mm,
And we also have a trademark vegan key called V. And I think in the first 7 days, we became an Amazon #1 new release. Like it was nuts. Like we were
mm,
just going crazy on it. So we wanted to learn about retail. Target has a program called the Target Accelerator. It's sort of like Y Combinator for food and retail brands.
mhm,
5,000 brands apply every year. And these are often established brands, like brands that are at Whole Foods and this and that. They're already scaling. We were
right.
like a tiny mom and pop brand that was just like D2C. And we got in. They chose 30 brands out of the 5,000 and we got in and we got to be incubated through their program. We got to like talk to the CEO. We had great mentors, amazing director named Tahaji. Like we learned so much about retail and now we're prepping to scale. Like we have some really cool investors joining us. We're expanding into retail and it's been a really fun process. And the goal is to like make a splash in the butter industry and to also help improve the health span of Americans.
That's really beautiful and, a really in-depth, I think, summary of, like, what it takes to create in an entrepreneurial space and also scale in an economy that's, not doing so hot. But on a personal note, what does healthy eating mean to you, kinda beyond the trends and the buzzwords? When did it become something that was a priority and a necessity in your life?
It became a priority through suffering. Like I think I've been in so many hospital rooms. I have terrible asthma. I've had, weight issues and this and that. And it's one thing to like be on stage and make people laugh and go to events and be smiling and always putting on, a good front. And then going home and being on like nebulizer breathing machines and feeling so tight and uncomfortable that you're short of breath all the time and that you have back pain and you have all sorts of other health issues and you only get one life and like if you're suffering through it, it is so miserable and it's so painful. And so it was sort of like I'm very lucky that my wife is also so interested and focused on her health optimization because it's so much easier to go on that journey together. It's very difficult to like do it alone. And it's sort of like you get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm,
And that was it. It was like, what's the point? And so there was a massive shift. We started doing fasting, intermittent fasting. I would do 3-day fasts. We started tracking our biomarkers, doing blood work. Now I'm like a little too into it, obviously tracking all my biomarkers, but like even blood work, and you gamify it. And we're like, okay, my blood work after all the like albumin and this and that, it said it was like, now I'm biologically 21 and my wife is 19. So we're like in a competition. We're trying to like
Mm,
keep lowering or flattening our age. And, it's a fun, goofy, stupid thing we do. It's not something we're like obsessed with, but what we are obsessed with is like trying to live with reduced suffering, because as we get older, pain is so difficult to tolerate, illness is inevitable, but like how much of your life you spend unwell, you have a huge amount of like, you know, you have a hand in that. And
yeah,
everybody, it's easy to say cop outs of like, oh, this is my genetics, this is this. But actually, statistics shows that oftentimes in a lot of conditions, genetics are even 9% of your actual cause. So you have the other 91% in your hands to determine. It's your epigenetics of your lifestyle, your food, your choices, how to help improve your life. My dad is like an incredible example of that. He's doing a way better job than I am. It's like both tragic and incredible that he got a six pack before I ever have in my life. And like he's almost 70 and he has a six pack and he does like bar pull ups and, he looks amazing, but it's very
mhm.
inspiring because he started later in life. And so even though I feel like, I could have done this earlier, it's never too late. So whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, like you can start. I didn't include the 80 group. Maybe for 80, it might be too late. So sorry, 80-year-olds who are logged in.
Oh,
I was
man.
going
I
to
mean, I
say
feel
it, but
like
I stopped because I was like,
if you
if
if you
you're
made
80,
it to
it's
80,
like, just let
what
it
you
go.
doing's working now.
You don't need to get on supplements and be like, oh, I'm fasting. It's like, just eat. Like
Just
you're
keep doing what you're
85.
doing, it's working.
Can you imagine an 86-year-old like, I'm going to change my life around? I'm like, nah, it's like
Yeah.
86 years that way. Turning around is too far to
Yeah.
just keep
That's like
going.
it's like trying to tell your my grandpa from India was visiting in the US, and I was about to tell him about this, like, the way he's drinking his water, and then I was like, "This guy is in his
Yeah.
30s. Who am I to tell him? I'm trying to be like him, active and eating
Yes.
right." So, that's really funny, and I think that's a good place for us to kind of pivot a little bit because I wanna get back a little bit more into your other work. So, recently, you were part of a really cool experience, the RISE Fellowship, and you were telling us about keeping up with the Guptas, and you were also acting, but a production behind the camera and directing those things. And then I feel like a lot of your career was pointing you towards writing and screenwriting. What was it like for you to be a part of that fellowship and return back to being behind the camera, directing and producing after so much time away from that?
Great question. I guess I'll give you a little lead up to how I got here. So after keeping up with the Guptas, I kind of kept pursuing how to break into the industry. I didn't really know how. Like it's oftentimes like who you know to try to like get your material into the right room. Sometimes not sometimes you need an agent to get you into the right rooms, but then you have to be in the right rooms to get the agent. And I was always sort of stuck in limbo. Keeping up with the Guptas was amazing because got me in the room with the vice president of 20th Century Fox. And honestly, was just so thrilled to be like in the Fox studio in that meeting. I would have like just happy to like be an assistant or even a custodian on the lot and just work there. But they read my stuff and they ended up giving me a blind script deal, which was it's quite unprecedented because I had no track record. And it's like a studio taking a bet on a completely new piece of talent, and that opened doors for me. And so even though there were many years after that like I was struggling to find my next gig, I think it was the first piece of validation that gave me confidence to keep going. Then I had a big drought, like maybe it was a famine of like 6 years. Even though I got fatter, like I know I had a famine, which I you just eat bad and you get bigger. This isn't all about body. And, I ended up, like, almost, giving up because it'd been many years and I hadn't sold anything else, and I was like, "Maybe I can't do this. Maybe it's not gonna work out. Maybe I gotta pivot." And literally, I was, approaching my 30th birthday, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna turn 30. I don't even feel like a real adult. Like, I have such a great network and a great education and a great community. I could have job XYZ, and I get these great offers, making great money, and just, like, get married, get this, get that, and chase the thing, or I'm like out here like, trying to sell my fantasy scripts. And I was on the cusp of giving out. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she was like very she kept motivating me to like not give up. And I was very depressed on my 30th birthday. She like took me to Puerto Rico to cheer me up and help me snorkel and make me feel great and all of that. And I was still feeling really low and I was about to give up. I had $1,200 left in the bank. So it was like, I got 1 month's rent. What a good time that in LA.
Man.
That could have been rent. Now that's like, I could take you to lunch. I got $1,200. I could take you for coffee.
Yeah.
And I was so close to giving up. And 2 days after that, literally on our flight home, I get a phone call and it's like Sony Pictures read a script you wrote. And it was this script I had written. It was like a dance comedy. And I had been working on it with a guy named Ivan Reitman, who's the writer creator of Ghostbusters and a bunch of really iconic franchises. And they loved it so much they want to buy it in a like all cash deal. And I was like, who is, goofing me right now? Like, this is ridiculous. This is BS.
Yeah.
And it was all very surreal and it was real. And that ended up being like the first big feature that I sold. And it was notable. It was exciting. That kind of got me back in the game. Also got me a lot of good kind of credibility in town because it was one of those things again where it's like, who's this random guy who is like selling stuff and selling original IP is really difficult in Hollywood. Hollywood runs on IP. So it's like Spider-Man, this, a book, old
Yeah.
property, blah, blah, blah. An original idea is actually extremely rare to sell and really hard to sell. It's like striking lightning.
And
And
IP
I'd
for
already,
guests, sorry to interrupt you. IP
yeah,
for guests is intellectual property. So it's an original work that's, obviously attributed to the individual who created it. So for people who didn't know what that meant, IP is like related to the work that you're creating essentially. But sorry to
exactly.
cut you off.
No, no, no. And oftentimes, like a movie you might see in theaters, like is like we're gonna go see Wicked. Like there's plays, there's this. Like some of these stories will have like 100-year plus history that they will sort of just keep reimagining. But selling an original idea, a brand new idea that doesn't exist, is very difficult. And it's like striking lightning. And the odds of it, even in the Writers Guild, is like extremely rare. Like 0.000 whatever. And I struck lightning twice already. It was with the Guptas and with this dance comedy. And so it was sort of a thing that really helped open doors for me. Now we were like, things were going really well on the project. We were casting, we were in pre production. Ivan was our main producer. And then during COVID, Ivan passed away. And so the whole project sort of fell apart and it was really tragic. And it was like amazing learning from him and his team. But at the very least, even if that project didn't go the distance, now it had opened all the doors. Like I got signed to a big agency. I think I signed with UTA right away, which is where I'm at now. And it helped be like people were like, what else you got? So I like took a project idea to Will Arnett and Sony Television. They loved it. We took it to the market. We ended up getting a bidding war. We sold it to Amazon. It was like a really cool, crazy thing. I ended up pitching Disney a really large Aladdin project with the producers of Lord of the Rings and sold that. And that was really exciting. And that's like, we've done 3 drafts of that project. Now, then there's like the Fox Disney merger. So there's
Mhm.
like, who knows if and when that would all kind of kick around. And it's a really cool story. Not allowed to like talk about it, but it's Aladdin related. And then there was a big book called Giraffes Can't Dance. It's a big kids franchise. It's like a book that probably every kid has. DreamWorks had that book for a long time. And there's an awesome producer named David Hoberman who was attached, and they've been trying to find a writer for it for a long time. They can really crack it. There are a lot of really talented writers who pitched on it, like people who I think are 1,000 times better than I am. But most people pitch sort of over here. And my pitch on the story was here. And sometimes when you like come in, it's like, here's this kid's book that has like 10 pages but it's sold like bajillions of copies and it's a big
Right.
IP. How do you turn that into like a franchise like Madagascar or Kung Fu Panda or like how do you build a world out of 10 pages of like little poems to build like an entire universe that could be like 4 movies and who are the characters and what's the story and this and that. So it's always a process. And sometimes when you're pitching on these things, the bummer is that like you're pitching for free because first you're trying to get the job. It's like an interview and you're like really hoping that they vibe with it. And there's never any guarantee that like you did 3 months work pitching and that they will hire you or not. But I got lucky and I got the gig. And so for the last like year or so, I was working on writing and prepping that movie for DreamWorks, which is an amazing experience. Like working with they were just finishing up, I think, The Wild Robot then, and like I just love big animated movies, and learning from the animation world, and like going to the studio and being absorbed in the like whole DreamWorks campus was fantastic.
Mhm,
And then the Rise Fellowship. So Ride Back Rise is a nonprofit started by Dan Lin, who is now the chairman of Netflix Film. He's a prolific producer, everything from like Aladdin to Lego Movie. He is like, I feel like every movie he's made makes over $1 billion. And right
mhm,
now he runs all the movies for Netflix. An incredible human being. And he started this program because he felt like a lot of mid-level writer directors who sort of like where I was, where you're like working, it's your business, but you haven't had your like A-list hit. Like you haven't had your Wicked, you haven't had your Jurassic Park, you haven't had your Crazy Rich Asians. Sometimes they need a little bit of help because they don't have the access that like a lot of other creators have. Like there's a lot of privilege in Hollywood. There's nepotism. There's like my dad plays golf with your dad, and I'm like my dad plays carom with Samay's dad. So who's gonna make my movie?
yeah,
So like no one in Hollywood, like we don't know people in LA. We don't know that world of like entertainment financiers. So how do you connect and find those people? So he started a very competitive program where they would choose 15 fellows out of a pool of applicants, and like hundreds of, I don't know, probably now thousands of people apply, and they will go through everybody's work. They will read all their scripts. They will, make phone calls all around Hollywood and like get reputation checks and get, referrals and this and that. And they will choose once a year 15 fellows to basically bring into this masterclass program to try to like accelerate their career to basically try to jump them to the A list. I was very fortunate and beyond thrilled to have been chosen this year. So for the last year, I've been part of the Rise Fellowship, and it's life changing. Like they partner you with incredible mentors. We do like master classes with Issa Rae, who created Insecure. We will learn from, Meg LaFauve, who wrote Inside Out and Inside Out 2, and Oscar winning directors will come, and John Chu will come, and we get to like get that one-on-one time. And I never get to go to film school. So to be able to sit face to face with like my heroes and over dinner, learn from them. There's Jessica Sharzar. And then my mentor, who I got partnered up with, is Dana Fox. And Dana Fox is the writer producer of Cruella, Wicked, like some of the best movies of all time. She is, I believe, like the most valuable screenwriter in all of Hollywood. She's a prolific producer too. She also produced Wicked, and she's just the nicest person ever. And her producing partner, Margie, it's like getting to learn from them. And I would like show them my scripts, and we'd be like going through it scene by scene. And sometimes it's about like even sharpening it to the point of that comma shouldn't be there. This word shouldn't be there. There's like a
mm,
rhythm and flow to dialogue. Like this is all fictional stuff and you're creating fictional characters, but every part of their conversation and emotion has to feel real and nuanced and authentic to each character. And any micro moment that doesn't feel correct, you disconnect. And it's like so tricky because everything's made up, but it has to feel so real. And sometimes it is extremely tiny touches. And that's sort of where the master is the most, skilled at it. And so to be able to
mhm.
learn from them and absorb, that was great. And then I feel like I've been talking forever. And last thing is that then I was allowed to also direct something. So they funded a short for me, and I have a feature film that I'm attached to direct for next year. And I needed to like kind of get back into it because I haven't directed since Gupta's, which was like literally like $500, my camera, my friends, and to like the other feature has a really big star attached and it's a big project. And so kind of a warm up, I need to like get back into it. And so I got to direct a short film through the program, which is now in post production. It's being edited, should be out for the world to see, and on the film festival circuit in the next few weeks. And it was an opportunity that I needed. And I'm super thrilled that the Rise Fellowship gave me that chance.
That's so awesome. I think there's like a lot of good points, and obviously your journey is layered, but I think that aspect of learning from masters is so important. I think it's an important lesson I've learned like in the past 2 years specifically. I think we forget, like when we're young, how many people have been doing what they're doing for so long, decades and decades of experience that is so nuanced that it's just not stuff that you can read in a textbook. Like whether that's film school or when you're getting your degree, there's so many things across, business, work, life, whatever it is that you're doing, that there are things you may learn on a textbook, but when applied in actual rooms where the pressure is on to perform or to be in, the right situation and learn how to operate within that, I think it's so important to learn from these masters. And I think we lose a little bit of that, I think, post COVID with the prevalence of remote work and also the prevalence of just social media having young people have such a vivid platform to just create things. You almost forget that there's so many masters of their craft that we can learn from and take on as mentors who are also so ready to pour into the next generation, right? Because these are people who have one stand on the shoulder of other giants who have learned from their own masters, but have so much game and wisdom to pass on that will continue to impact generations after them. So that's such a cool experience. And I think even similarly with Mamas, you guys had the Target Accelerator where there's platforms and situations to provide people with mentorship, influence, and also access to opportunities. And even in the startup world that I'm in now, that's very much the game, right? You can have a killer product, and so many people have amazing AI products or tech products, whatever they're making. But oftentimes, a differentiator between people who are doing very well in the space and not is just being in the right place in the right room at the right time. And I think a lot of success from people who are very successful that I hear from attribute it to a little bit and a lot of bit of luck of being in the right place at the right time, but also making themselves more available to that luck. Sunko in the first episode that we did in the podcast put in a really beautiful way. It's like increasing your surface area for luck. So despite something needing to be in a right place in a right time, you can increase your surface area by putting yourself in those positions or putting yourself out there or cold emailing people or telling people that you really are appreciative of their work. And who knows what those could lead to along the line. But that's so cool. So looking forward to that project being released in the next few weeks. I'm going to shift the podcast a little bit. So the theme of it is If I Die Today. And of course, you know that you're one of the first early advocates and people that I brought up the podcast when I first came in. And I'll say it, this is some feedback you gave me privately, but I'll mention it publicly is what is the wow factor? What is the thing that will really separate you amongst the plethora of millions and millions of podcasts? And for me, when I really sat and thought about that question it was the theme accompanied by me. And if I died today, I really wanted to dive into people's purpose and more so legacy that they want to leave behind for whether that's the next generation, people alongside them, or even older generations. So I think I want to dive a little bit more into your purpose, your why of what you're doing right now. How has your relationship with self belief and confidence evolved over time? And what did you have to unlearn a little bit about success, quote unquote, to kind of grow as an individual?
Fantastic questions. I think first thing I had to unlearn and what I realized is definition of success changed for me. I think of success so much more now in terms of my personal life and not my professional life. Like I think I always used to think of my professional life as my those are the biomarkers of my success. That's completely changed, especially when you've had health scares. Like nothing puts things into perspective like a good health scare, and it'll make you realize that like I've got everything I want. I don't need anything. It's just we have this like false belief that we need more and more and more. And I feel like I had so much of that FOMO. Like if at one point in your life when you're like when your friends are working and doing well and you have $1,200 in the bank, all you can think about is like, I need to get a house, I need to get more money, I need to get a nicer car, I need to get this, blah, blah, blah. And you work hard and you don't give up and you get those things and your homes get bigger and you'll have more rooms and you'll have more cars and this and that. And you're like, after a while, it doesn't mean anything. And it's like sometimes some of my greatest joys is like having a fun, cozy movie night with my wife and my dog, seeing my family and spending time with my parents, my sister, my friends, my family friends. It like is so invaluable. And travel, like going and learning about different cultures and meeting strangers and eating street food in different countries and snorkeling and being with, for me, being with, I feel like I was a fish in my last life, like being in the sea and just like admiring earth and seeing waterfalls and trees and jungles and animals. That is, if I can now, all I need to do is create a system in my life that allows me to do more of that. And that is how I see success. No longer like there is no, I was gonna say there's no check. I was like, maybe there is a check that is big enough to, I don't know yet. That the number has to be pretty robust. But I mean, truthfully, it's like and wellness. Like I want to be healthy. I want to be feel good and I want to be excited about every day, which currently I am. So as long as I am excited about what I'm doing, I can pivot all sorts of ways. As long as I am having fun and having a rich experience, I think I will think of myself as successful.
If you died today, what part of your story would you want remembered the most?
If I died today, I hope people will just remember how I made them feel. And I think like that is what I strive to do. And like there are people that I have in my life that I'm so lucky to have that like when they walk into the room, they fill me with light. Like I am so happy to see them. And not everybody's like that. And there's people that walk into the room and you feel anxious and negative. There are people and you feel like the temperature just dropped a degree. There's some people that they're like dementors, like the temperature drops to ice and you're like, freezing and your soul's being sucked up. We'll talk about those people offline. But to be someone who like you see enter a room and you just swell with joy or happiness and like you know that interacting with them makes your day, just 1 degree better. And no matter what direction it was heading in, it just course correct slightly. That's what I hope to be and I hope to do. And then if I am successful in that, I hope that is what people remember about me.
Wow. Well, I can tell you one thing, you've already done that in so many ways, not just with me, but my direct family. We all see you as that light in a room. And you can tell because my mom just lights up when you come into the room and we all do as well. And I've told you a lot about in private of how much you mean to me to have a group of grown men also crying on your bachelor trip and telling you all the things that they love about you. But outside of that, just the personal effect that you have on people and community and family, you are also a beacon of light for I think the next generation who isn't fixed on the traditional path. I think the opportunities for the next generation of not just Odia kids, Indian Americans, but the youth will look to you as an example and a beacon of someone who didn't stray the path but chose their own and despite a difficult and strenuous and tough path through crafted and created success and will continue. I mean, I'm so excited to see all the things that you continue to do and continue to inspire people. So it's very meaningful for me to have you on the first season of If I Die Today. And I think people will really enjoy this episode and everything you have to offer. So love you and thank you for joining this episode. And really looking forward to hopefully the next season where we can do it in person in a cool scenic background with a ranch
Yes.
and everything to come with that.
Manifest. Well, thank you so much. The feeling is so mutual. As you know, you and your family, and for any listeners that don't know, like somebody's brother is also my best friend, and they both became brothers. You guys are the people that I'm talking about when I say you light up when that person is in a room or you're with that person. You just feel so comfortable and safe. And I hope that we can all try to be those kind of people in the world. And thank you for having me on your podcast. It is awesome. And I can't wait to see it grow and be more successful. And let's do the next season in like Hawaii or something and
Yeah.
out on a ranch, like by the beach.
Yeah. We gotta figure out the logistics for that for this equipment, but we're gonna make it happen. So
That
thank you
sounds great.
everyone for joining in on this episode. I think this one will if not be the last episode of the year, but will be close to the second to the last. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll tag all of Sunny's work. Some of this work will come out a little bit later, of course, like he mentioned, but all the work. And if you want to follow his journey, and I will also have his wife and co-founder on the pod soon. Coco might be a little bit harder to get.
She's
She's
tough.
gonna be
She's
a pricey
expensive.
one.
Yeah, yeah, well, I mean, put together the paperwork and see if you can get a bank to help you.
I'll get some financiers and try to make it happen. But thank you guys
Yeah,
so much for tuning in, and yeah, really appreciate you listening. Thank you.
cool. Love you, man. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to If I Died Today with your host, Samay Mishra. Every story reminds us that life's meaning isn't found in what we achieve, but in who we become. Join us next time as we explore another journey, another life, and another reason to keep going. New episodes drop soon, so subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if today's conversation moved you, leave us a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate the message.